Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and my guest today is Brittney Stefanic. Brittney, how are you?
I'm great, Chanel. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, this is going to be good because Brittney, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a mother of one little guy. She was a high school teacher who is now turned to a whole different thing. She is a sleep consultant. And for people who know me, they know I like my sleep. For me, having babies, oh my goodness, that was the hardest thing. Like not getting sleep is just so hard. And I think most people can relate. How did you do as a mom? You have all these tricks up your sleeve, but having a newborn, how did you do on those first sleepless nights?
Well, I will say that it's definitely nothing that you can prepare for ahead of time. You know, I felt like going into it, we were going to cope. We were going to get through. And then push comes to shove. And night after night, you watch the clock as it's, ticking by minute. And there's not enough recorded on your DVR and not enough going on your Facebook news feed to get you through the night all the time. So it's certainly, it's a tricky thing. But the good news is it doesn't have to be. So,
yes. Well, I'm excited to get into that and for you to teach us because as anyone who's sleep deprived, knows they just want relief. Like, please help me. If you're tired, that is all you want is some sleep. So I'm excited to get into this. But to start, tell us a little bit more about you and kind of what got you into becoming a sleep consultant, why your interest led that way.
Well, after we had our son, I was with him at his 8-week pediatrician checkup. And fortunately, our pediatrician took the time to ask me, blatant right out, how's sleep going? And I think at that point, I totally lost it and was super emotional and telling her, how much we were struggling. And I was lucky that she didn't shrug it off. She didn't push it off as like a normal mom problem. She encouraged me to go home and read up on sleep and infant sleep and figure out how I could help teach my son the skills that he needed to be sleeping on his own. So, of course, I did just that because I was desperate and went home, started scouring the internet, reading a bunch of blogs, downloaded a handful of books, and I came across the Sleepsense program. This just felt like a great fit for us. Our son he was young. So I needed something gentle and I needed something that would fit with our sleep goals and kind of where we were. And this was the fit. So we implemented it, saw immediate progress, and I just couldn't help but tell my family and my friends how much better our lives were because we were getting better sleep. I quickly realized, thanks mostly to my husband, that I started talking about sleep a lot and kind of took that as a sign that this might be more than just my favorite hobby of sleeping. And
that's
a couple months later,
hobby, sleeping. I think I like that. I've never heard that referred to as a hobby, but I like that because, some people are like, I don't have time for a hobby. Well, heck, everyone can sleep. So that's good.
Absolutely. And if you're good at it, it becomes a really, meaningful hobby. So a few months later, the opportunity came up for me to join the Sleepsense team as a consultant, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about the training to become a consultant.
Yeah. So I, looked into the option for this different and new career path. And I realized that it would be, a good fit for me. So I dove right in and flew down from Nevada down to Sarasota, Florida. And I was trained in person by Dana Obelman herself. For those of you who don't know, Dana is the author of the program, the Sleepsense program, and she is a well-known sleep guru. She knows her stuff for sure. So I felt honored to be there with her and live and in person, learning the ins and outs of pediatric sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So I know a little bit of Dana Obelman because when we had our fifth baby, so we had our other babies and, muddled through and whatever. And then when he had a few sleep issues, then that's who I turned to. Like, okay, she, like you said, she knows her stuff. So there have been things like transitioning from 3 naps to 2 naps. She kind of walked me through how to do it. And those things are so helpful. There are things that you maybe sleep almost seems like so intuitive. Why do we need help? And yet we do. And especially as parents, when we're dealing with this whole new thing of baby sleep, there are just so many transitions and so many questions that come up that I think it's really valuable to have, someone you can turn to. So I think it's cool to even have a thing like a sleep consultant. I like it. It's not something that, when my older kids, maybe it was around, my oldest daughter is 14, but it's not something I had heard of. We didn't really have the internet because I'm old. And, but things have changed a lot. And now not only is that available, but it's accessible. And so it's really cool that that's out there. So let's talk a little bit about some of the problems that you see as you work with people. And let's start with babies, because I think that's a lot of the pain point. Some of the common sleep problems you see in babies.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and just define kind of the baby age range. So for that age range, let's talk about like 3 months up to 2 years old. So for those little ones, I'd say the most common sleep problem or pitfall that parents run into, in my experience, is overtiredness. So they're keeping the little one up too long, either between their naps or before bedtime. They might be, like you were mentioning, struggling with a transition from 3 naps down to 2 or 2 down to 1. And as a result of that overtiredness, it makes the next sleep that much harder. And so it seems like this kind of vicious cycle that you get stuck in. Did you want me to talk about tips too? I'm sure everybody would love those.
Yeah, for sure. We would. Go ahead.
So with this overtiredness, the best thing that I can recommend is that as parents, we're really watching for those cues. Different kiddos exhibit different tiredness cues, yawning, rubbing their eyes. Once they get a little bit older and more vocal, you can really tell a change in their attitude. And I would keep a really open eye on those and then encourage a nap before you get too far into the overtiredness.
Okay. I've noticed with my youngest, his tiredness cue is he gets really still and he kind of stares off into space. And usually he's all energy, and he's moving and he's playing and he's laughing. But when he's tired, he goes in the zone. And so I'm like, oh, it's time. But that's kind of a subtler one. And that was a little harder for me to learn and to catch because, when you're a mom and your baby's quiet, you're like, all is good, all is well. It's all working out. But yeah, no, he actually needs to go down for a nap. So, okay. So overtiredness, I can see how that can be such a problem. Now you said that's from 3 months to 2 years. Back us up a little bit and tell me about newborns because, is there anything that can be done for newborns or you just get what you get? Talk to me about the very littlest ones.
I love that. You get what you get, which sometimes is the case.
Okay.
But for most little ones, so under 12 weeks old, for those newborns, I'd say the biggest issue that parents are, presenting is this daytime, nighttime confusion. And I'm sure you have experienced it, probably with all of yours.
One, and you know what? I had one that was really bad. Most of my kids were really good, but I can totally relate to this problem because my second child, our first son, he just thought day was night and night was day, and it was torture. So talk to the parents who are going through that. I'm sure they'd love to hear some tips on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who feel like you're going through this, I don't need to explain what it is, but for the rest of you, this confusion looks like longer stretches of sleep during the daytime hours. So we're talking 3, 4, 5 hours during the day. Plenty of time for mom to get things done, even take a shower, which for some of us is like, what? But then the problem falls in the nighttime when it's like these short cat naps. So it might be like a cat nap and then a little snack and then a cat nap and a snack. And that is frustrating as a parent because you're like, how are you sleeping so well during the day? And then not at night. Well, their circadian rhythm just hasn't sunk in to the day and night that we know as grownups. And so the easiest way to get this on track and to kind of change babies, flip-flop them, I guess, would be to expose baby to natural light as much as possible during the day. Trickier for some than for others as we head into the winter months, but open up your blinds, really call attention to the fact that it's morning and it's daytime. And then at night, we're going to do exactly the opposite. So be sure to keep it kind of somber, darker, quieter as we go into the evening so that we can really help baby in learning that separation of the days and the nights.
Now, do you find parents resist this one? I just ask because I see newborn parents, especially new parents, it's their first, and they've got this tiny little precious baby, and they don't want to bring their baby outside. Like their baby's a vampire, like keep them away from the light. There's just this fear, like my fragile baby. Do you see any resistance to that, or are people pretty open to that idea?
I think with the first time parents, there might be a little bit of resistance, but there's nothing wrong with staying inside and exposing to light. If you are apprehensive or as the cold kind of sneaks in and flu season is upon us, that's fine if you want to stay home. But there are ways to get baby exposed to light without leaving your house. Then there's the parent who has more than one little one at home. And I think they're so eager to get days and nights sorted out that they're willing to try just about anything.
Yes.
So, a quick trip to the park or even a drive in the car while the sun is beaming can be really helpful in getting that sorted as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great tip. I like that. And I think that, for the parents who are resistant to that, it's just a matter of, getting used to it and realizing your baby can go outside or, like you said, there are other ways you don't have to go outside, but that's a great tip. And I have a question for you because I've heard, and you'll have to set me straight. I don't know if this is like an old wives' tale or whatever, but I've heard that a lot of times the baby's circadian rhythm is off because when you're active during the day, when you're pregnant, when you're active during the day and walking around, then you're kind of lulling them to sleep. And then at night when you're sleeping is when they move around. Is there anything to that, or do you know?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They spend most of their time in utero sleeping during the day. With the exception of when we're, napping or getting our little pregnancy rest in. And then at the nighttime, when we're down and quiet, they are most active. So it is definitely an in utero transition. We know that the newborn period is considered the fourth trimester. So it's definitely a result of that we get these days and night confusion.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's move on to a little bit older then. I know you work with up to 12-year-olds, but talk to me about toddlers because I think we see a lot of, problems. There are all kinds of problems in the toddler years, but a lot of these sleep problems kind of rear their heads at that age, 2 and up.
Absolutely. So for any moms listening with toddlers at home, that come bedtime, they will make about any excuse in the book. And some of them are hilarious. I've had some clients talk to me about the excuses that come, around the 7 o'clock hour. Things like, Mommy, my PJs itch. Can we go get scissors? We need new PJs. So toddlers at bedtime come up with a lot of excuses. And I'd say that's a really common issue with tots and sleep. So the best advice for this one is to be consistent because when push comes to shove, toddlers want to push boundaries, but all they really want are some rules and some expectations. So if we can, protect their needs by setting some guidelines in place, be consistent with them, that can make that bedtime period, one, a little bit shorter and more enjoyable for everybody. And then it can also cut out some of those excuses that the toddlers can just get on a roll. And before you know it, you've changed the PJs and new sheets and we've gone to the potty 7 times and we've eaten a 3 different bedtime snacks, and it's been a long night already, and it's not even 8:00.
And, I just want to point out something you said, because I think that this is really profound, that toddlers want to push boundaries. They do push boundaries, but what they really want is to find out where those boundaries are. And they're looking for that stability. And so when we give them that as parents, instead of give in to that, then they're really getting what they want, and they're understanding kind of the framework of their lives, and they feel more safe and they feel more secure. And so even though as a parent, sometimes you can feel mean, like, no, this is your bedtime, and they're sad and it's upsetting. It's important to know that that's good for them in the long run, to have that consistency. It's super important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Chanel.
Cool. Well, okay. I love it. So let's move on and talk about some of the common parents' mistakes. I'm sure that there are things as a sleep consultant that you hear, like false assumptions that come up about sleep, kind of these ideas that maybe are not based in science, that maybe we're getting wrong, and kind of the most common, so that people can kind of see, areas where they might be able to improve, or some of these paradigms that they might be able to shift and understand better.
Absolutely. So I'll start with this one. I'm not sure if you've ever heard this, but I get it a lot. My baby is just a bad sleeper. So I hear that one, and I try to educate families and just let them know that even though that might be the case right now, it's only because that kiddo hasn't yet learned the skill that they need to be able to sleep on their own, to be able to have that consistent, independent sleep throughout the night. And sleep is a skill. So just like rolling and crawling and walking and talking and writing our names, all of these things we learn over time, and sleep is no different than that. So just because you feel like your baby is a bad sleeper, isn't because they can't. It's just because they don't yet know how.
So do you think that there are bad sleepers? Kind of a deep question there, but are there? You said it's a skill. We can all improve, but is there some of us are just going to be worse at it than others?
Definitely a deep question. There are very rarely, but there are occasionally, some medical things that would get in the way of sleep. So for example, like sleep apnea, pediatric sleep apnea is a thing. It's, not a common thing, by any means, but if you are a parent who has been through sleep studies and been in sleep clinics with your kiddo, that that's a very real struggle. But in most cases, with most of our kiddos, it's just a skill needs to be learned. And in some cases, some habits need to be broken. So I would say way more often than not, it's a skill that just needs to be improved.
Okay, that's good, because maybe some people are going to struggle more, but that's so hopeful. Okay, it's a skill. We can work at this. We can do better, because I think that belief that you shared, my baby is just a bad sleeper, is very limiting belief, because then we feel like there's nothing I can do. It's out of my hands. This baby came to me this way, and they're bad at it, and it's just never going to sleep. So yeah, that when you change that in your mind, then that's a lot more hopeful. And you see there's sleep in the future. It's going to come. So that's good. So tell us some more things that you hear from parents.
So I'm going to just step back for just 1 second, back to what you were saying about the kind of mindset. So with that one, if, I hear parents say, my baby's a bad sleeper, or another one I hear often is, my baby is never going to sleep through the night. And it's just this emotionally charged and very upsetting statement. For those families, I like to encourage mom or dad to say that phrase again, but rephrase it and use the word yet. So something like, my baby isn't sleeping through the night yet, and I'm going crazy. Using that little word yet and placing that into the statement really changes the mindset for parents. And because sleep is a skill, and because we need to believe that we have the ability to teach them this skill, adding the word yet just means it's coming, and it is a capable task. We just need to get there, and our little ones need our help to be able to get there.
Yeah. And again, I mean, that goes back to that whole idea of hope. They're not sleeping through the night yet, but they will. I mean, that's implied. They will. It'll happen. Yeah. You don't feel so trapped with that as you do with my baby won't ever sleep through the night, because that just sounds like just, end it now. Like, what's the point? I'm never going to sleep again ever. This is just, too much for me. So I like that, adding yet. Any others that you hear from parents?
Yeah. So another one, not at all related to mindset. But parents will say to me, and it's funny, even like in the grocery store, they'll recognize me and, oh yeah, well, I just kind of feel like my child's going to fall asleep whenever they're tired. And I, try not to chuckle too much under my breath, but, this is rarely true. It's similar to if you think about sleep as we think about nutrition, which oftentimes they fall hand in hand. Very rarely do we, raise a child who just flat out loves green vegetables. Very rare. So as parents, we're encouraging them to eat green vegetables. We're letting them make some choices around healthy food. We're giving them support in that. It's the same thing with sleep. It is rare that a child is going to choose to sleep at any age. They would rather stay up and play and hang out with their families or watch TV or do whatever they're doing. And they're then going to fall into that pattern of overtiredness that we talked about earlier. So, you might be a lucky parent and your kiddos might go to sleep when they are at that, border of becoming tired. But more often than not, they need a little nudge. They need that structure and support so that they can get into bed or to nap at a timely manner.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're talking, like the only kids that I've really seen fall asleep just when things are going on and, they're tired and they fall asleep is when they're so exhausted. They're to the point where, they're young and they haven't had a nap all day, and it's like at a family party or get together with friends, and it's 10 at night, and then they conk out, somewhere weird. You find them asleep. But that is not a healthy pattern when your kid is like so exhausted that they've been up for that long. And that's the only time that I can really think of, my baby's they fall asleep when they're tired. Other than that, you're usually getting the cues that they're tired, but they're not actually falling asleep. So that's kind of interesting to think about. Like, I'm just trying to picture all the babies I've been around and what makes them go to sleep. And it's usually they show you they're tired, or if you miss that window, they get really hyper, stay up really long, and eventually like conk out way past their bedtime.
Yep, exactly. But rarely are they choosing, oh, okay, I'm tired. Like, time for me to go to bed. They get to that point as, older children or adolescents, but most time, especially in the toddler years, they're not going to admit that. They'd rather have the
fun. Exactly. And it makes sense. So, and that's why this structure is so important, and why helping our kids to, understand this routine of sleep and the importance of sleep is so important for them, for us, for the whole family. So in closing, I would love to hear any last pieces of advice you have for listeners, for people who are struggling with sleep. Any thoughts for them?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I love most about being a pediatric sleep consultant is educating families about not only the importance of sleep, but also the reality. Sleep is so important. We know that for little ones, it allows their body to grow and develop. We know that it allows their immune systems to fight off common illnesses, especially important as we enter into winter. We know that it allows them to focus in school, and sleep allows them to have energy for extra activities and sports. But sleep is equally as important for parents. And it's important that we get a break. We work really hard, and we need that time. We need the time in the evening for our own sanity. We need the time in our evening for relationships with our partners and for our own health and wellness. So sleep can and should be your reality. And I wish you nothing but the best in using these tips to go forward.
I love it. And I think that we can all work to make sleep our hobby. Like you mentioned earlier, our reality and our hobby. Let's do it. It's a good one. So, I will be sure to link to Brittney's website. So if you guys want more information, you work remotely with clients. Is that right?
Absolutely. Anywhere and everywhere.
Awesome. So that way, if you're not local to the Nevada area, then you can still get in touch with her. And sometimes that can be really helpful to work with someone and get your specific questions answered. So, Brittney, thank you so much for being here and for teaching us. And I wish you all a good night's sleep. And thank you for being here on Moms Who Know. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. I really had a good time talking to Brittney and learning from her. After the call, she let me know about something she offers that I wanted to make sure I passed along to you guys. So Brittney offers a free 15-minute phone consultation. You can schedule that with her, and it's no obligation. You're able to talk to her and really get answers to your specific questions about what you can do to help your child sleep better. So you'll find that in the show notes on the podcast website, which is momswhoknowpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.